Hello and welcome to another episode of the Citizens of Lorcana podcast, a podcast where we invite you to be a part of their world. We're your hosts, Jared and James, and this week we are catching up on listener questions that we have missed. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Hey everyone, welcome to another week. Last week we were joined again by Brandon Brimley of Brimley Games, word salad there, as we did a deep dive into Deep Trouble, the Lumineers quest. And I learned a lot from that, James. And specifically, I learned decks that I can use to beat a Lumineers quest with. But today, you have brought this to my attention that there are quite a few listener questions in our Discord that we haven't gotten to. So we want to answer those today. And it's going to be a short recording.
Yep. Right. And so it's mainly because you are enjoying family life, and we wanted to squeeze this in this week, so we actually pushed out an episode. But I guess let's get to it. What's the first question?
Yeah, so let me bring this up here. Oh, I thought I brought it up to our listener questions. Okay, where do we start? Right here with Martin Karp?
That one's really old, actually. That one's for over a month ago. Did we ever answer that one?
I don't think we did. Okay, right. So we'll just start here. Okay, so Martin Karp, thank you for the question. Sorry it's taken almost 2 months to answer it, but here we go. How do parents feel about cursing in the card shop? If I have my kid there, I would like for there to be no cursing, but I mean, also people are grown adults, so I would hope that they just exercise proper etiquette. But I'm not gonna sit there and tell somebody don't curse around my child. Like, it should just be something that they do. Like, I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have kids, and I would still prefer that, people don't like just curse all over the place in the shop. I mean, it just doesn't feel like it doesn't promote a fun environment, I don't think, especially with it being a Disney card game. It just doesn't feel right. But like you said, people are adults. If there's nothing but adults in the room, I really don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Just be respectful. Would you go back? Would you accept it as part of the culture? Would you talk to the players? Okay, so that's a follow-up question to the first one. Would I go back to the shop? I mean, I'm trying to think. When I've taken my son, I haven't heard a lot of cursing, so I haven't had to deal with this specifically. But I guess it depends on how egregious it is. Like, if it's somebody that's dropping the F-bomb every other word, then no, I probably wouldn't go back. But if it's somebody who made like a bad play and they're really frustrated and they say it like in frustration, I totally understand where that is coming from. But would I go back? I don't know. Probably, I don't know. Just, it's context dependent, I think.
Yeah.
When I talk to the players, again, context dependent.
Yep.
All right. So, any other thoughts on that?
No, I think it's pretty much, every person has to decide for themselves how they want to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. So this next one is also by Martin Karp. How would you feel about Ravensburger expanding national invites to set championships? If a store has a top 8 cut, everyone in top 8 would get an invite, and pricing continues down the line. If a shop only has enough to qualify for top 4, maybe only top 2 get the invite. Just because someone has an invite doesn't automatically mean they'll go to World. I'm guessing this is World Championship.
Well, yeah. So I think that a form of this is needed, but I don't think this would be the answer, because there's a set championship every 3 months, and there's about 2,000 of them, I think, maybe more, worldwide. Yeah. And so that would be way too many people, even if it was only one person per shop. So I would say that there needs to be, I think Pokemon does a point system where over the course of playing over weeks and weeks that you get earned points, and once you hit a certain point threshold, you would get an invite. So I feel something like that may be the way to go, where set championships may be a part of it, where if you win or you place in a set championship, you get a more points than you normally would. but also like weekly competitive events at your local shop maybe earn you a certain amount of points if you place first, second, or third, or something like that. And then the point total would just have to be something that makes sure that only a few hundred people get in across each nation, or depending on how many people. Obviously, the U.S. would have a lot more people than France, but just something like that, I think, is probably the way to go.
I like the idea behind this, but I don't know. It feels like Ravensburger wants set championships to be something separate from competitive Lorcana. Like, I think in their minds, and I know this isn't how it plays out in reality because you have all the people going to 4, 5, 6 set championships, but I think they really want the set championship to be a celebration of the set for the players of the local leagues. Like, yeah, it's still competitive, but they still want it local. Like, they don't want it at that high competitive levels. I mean, that's the feeling that I get about it. But I mean, on the other hand, I also like that too, where, as you say, maybe a point system where for placing a certain amount, you get so many points. But then, I mean, set championships are already super competitive. This would just add another layer of competitiveness to these events, and it would make casual players probably a little less likely to go check these out. So,
well, I think that something like that would help would be, you could, each set you could only earn points from one set championship. So you would only submit one set championship result. If you played in, like you said, if you played in 6 of them and you finished, second in one, then you would submit that one because it would give you the highest point. So I think they could limit it to one submission set championship per person, because Melee can be tracked.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, but I definitely would think that set championships shouldn't be the only extra system that gets you into qualifiers. I think it should be a year-long thing where you can earn points in a lot of different ways.
So next question comes from Cameron, the Lorcana curator. Okay, we're getting closer here. This was on June 17th, so this is just 9 days old. Math, 13 days old. If you were an actual Lumineer, what would your 2 ink colors be, and what would your ink casters look like? You want to take this one, James?
Sure. I think that even though I don't play the deck, I think my 2 colors would be Amethyst and Steel. And what would it look like? I think it would be kind of steampunk-ish. Not gears necessarily, but definitely like like the ink streams would be like wiry and going around and not necessarily connected to the ink caster itself, and lots of chrome and steel instead of gold or whatever. So something like that.
Yeah. I think if it were me, I don't know. I've always loved the pairing of Sapphire and Amber. Maybe it's because it was my favorite deck in set 1. Plus, I mean, it's the colors of Flounder, let's be honest. So if I were to have an ink caster, maybe it would look like a fishbone quill. It's terrible. I don't know. I haven't given much thought to that, but yeah, maybe it would probably be something underwater themed to maybe it'd be like a trident. There we go. Be like King Triton's trident. All right. So this comes from Kai, Brave Little Tailor. Other than Illumineers creating Dreamborn characters like Mickey Mouse, Musketeer, or Donald Buccaneer, what else can Illumineers do in the Great Illuminaire using their own ink casters?
Well, that's interesting, because we don't know. Can we do other things?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean,
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe we'll find out that there's something else. I mean, there's that amulet that Martin's got that may be doing something. So maybe they can create. I mean, they can create objects, right? Not just Lumineers, but objects, I think, can be created, and whole worlds essentially.
Yeah, because they can conjure items and songs, right, with the ink caster. I mean,
that's weird. Songs
too, right?
Songs aren't real. I mean, songs are just sung, right? So they aren't created. That's a little weird to think about, how songs are in the game as a card, but they're not like actually a glimmer. So
I guess we'll need the lore team to develop this a little bit. All right, moving on. And you guys, let us know what do you think. Illuminaires can do in the Great Illuminator with their own ink casters. Maybe they can make those flying machines that we saw in
Right?
set 3, or different things like
Maybe
that.
those are the engine. Maybe those can be part of the engine where you have to hook your ink caster up to the skiff thing to get it the ink, whatever they call those, to make them actually fly.
Maybe they're the equivalent of like wands in Harry Potter, where you can just like do the
anything.
dishes. I don't know. Okay, next question from Rodian. This was also on June 17th. I've seen a lot of comments lately, probably from newer TCG players, about the pace of new set releases. He's talking about me, and not being able to keep up. From what I understand, Lorcana's releases pretty much line up with the industry standard for TCGs, which is true. Would you say to people who are discouraged about not being able to keep up? Sorry, what would you say to people who are discouraged about not being able to keep up, but still want to enjoy the game? Any tips? Any tips for setting realistic expectations, dealing with FOMO, or maybe ideas for alternative ways to enjoy the game? Love your content. So basically, what he's asking is, there are a lot of people who are new to TCGs. They're super excited to be a part of something that's Disney. They're excited to be part of something that's a game. They're just excited to be a part of something that's new. However, what a lot of people can feel is overwhelm at keeping up. And I even had this conversation with somebody, with Zebex, that we've talked to before. I was like, I feel overwhelmed. Like, I want to collect 4 of every card. Am I just like a poser if I don't have 4 of every card going forward? Because honestly, like, there's a financial consideration to this aspect where I just can't splash for 4 Diablos, and I can't buy a case of boxes, to open up and crack packs and do trades and stuff. So as far as my tips, I would say FOMO is a real thing, and this game is designed to hit on those FOMO chemicals in the body that get released. Like, you don't want to miss out. And
Yeah,
every time you open the pack, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well,
Every time
just yeah. So you said this game, but it's like TCGs in general are designed that way. So it's not like this game is like very special or unique. Like you said in the question, it's industry standard. I mean, every game is like this. So there's the only way to deal with it is to manage your expectations of what you can collect, know your budget, and find the best way to do what you want to do. So, I mean, I know a lot of people have said it, and it is true, is to just buy singles because it's cheaper. If you buy, like right now, if you buy an Ursula's Return box at retail, there is, unless you get an enchanted, you will get nowhere near the value out of the box of what the cards are actually worth. So you could go onto eBay or TCG Player and you could buy, I would say you could probably buy an entire set of one of each card for less than the cost of a box, or very close to it right now, because Diablo is really the only expensive card in the set. So most people aren't chasing enchanteds, and they just want the cards to be able to play with. So definitely buy singles. Definitely wait until after the set is out and prices have stabilized. Yes, there may be a card that jumps up and way up in price, like Diablo, where you may have to buy 1 or 2 cards that are pretty expensive, but the rest of the cards will usually go way down in price. I was looking the other day, and Piglet started at like, I don't know, over $10, and now you can find them for like $1.50 or $2.
Yeah, you completely stole my thunder. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Buy the singles. And for me personally, I've just come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to run a Diablo deck. Like, there are other viable competitive decks that you can run that, like, I'm sorry, Emerald Steel is just a very expensive deck. If you have Diablo, if you have Beast, if you have all these cards that cost $40, $50, Ursula, like, just go in expecting that you're not going to run those decks. And if you open one in a pack, great, throw it in. But otherwise, plan on doing something else that's a little more competitive, that's a little more affordable. So, and the other thing too, manage your expectations. Like, I remember, James, when we started talking out, and we were like, I want to collect 1 of everything, and you've actually done a very good job with this. but I still remember the very first like conventions where they had the exclusive promos with the stamps on, and we were like, oh, I have to have one of these. And luckily, I did get one of each of the Musketeer promo cards, but I've since learned to just like I've learned to let it go. Like it's not going to ruin my life if I don't have all the convention promos.
Yeah, it's very tough for me. We all know that like you mentioned, I do want one of everything, and I've had to manage my expectations in that as well, where I'm like, okay, I set like a goal of like the first 40 numbered promos or whatever it may be, and then from there, I do have to, as you say, let it go for the ones that come after that, and just the ones that I can obtain realistically, I will get. But from there, it's like, you're just never going to get them, and you have to manage that, because it's over the years, it's going to just get better and worse in all aspects.
Well, this exclusive Mickey promo that's only given to winners of the DLCs, the top 8, like
Right.
that shatters any expectation that I ever had of collecting one of every card. So
At least they renumbered those to where they're not part of the promo numbering. So at least they're their own thing, and I can set those aside and be like, oh, it's not a promo. It doesn't fit in my binder and with the promo, so I don't have to worry about it.
All right. All right, that was a great question.
Find ways to trick your brain.
Again, if that's something that you have experience with, drop a comment in the comment section if you're watching this on YouTube, because I think that this is something that a lot of people need to hear. And as far as the release schedule, like you said, it's industry standard. That's also something I've come to terms with. Every 3 months, if I want to play, like just plan on buying singles. And I will say this too. The other thing about buying singles, like you say, if you wait too long to buy singles, like Pirate Piglet, now it's cheap, but if it's like a year from now and Pirate Piglet all of a sudden becomes wanted in the meta, you're going to wish that you'd bought it. So there's like a sweet spot, like maybe wait a set, see how the price goes, and then make the plunge. Because otherwise, cards like Maui and Maleficent Dragon are just going to go up and up. So
yeah, I bought the remaining like 30-ish cards that I needed to finish my play sets just like a couple days ago, and it was, I think I still needed something like 17 legendaries. But of course, one of them was Diablo. I still need one Diablo, but I didn't put that one in there. But I put in all the legendaries, and then a few, like 1 or 2 rares, and then a few super rares, and all combined with shipping, thanks to TCG Players Optimized, it was only like 3 vendors. It was like $90.
Yeah.
For like 30 cards and 17 of them legendaries, which if you think about it, a booster box has on average 4 legendaries for $145. And I got 17 of them plus some other cards for $90. So that is like very clear with math that you just got a case's worth of legendaries for less than the price of one booster box. That's why singles are a better buy.
I always keep an eye on TCG Player, and if a legendary goes below $10, that's like my trigger to buy.
Right.
All right, let's wrap this up because I know you got to run. We got one more question here again from Kai, and this Martin Carp, and this came in yesterday. With the general consensus among the Yu-Gi-Oh community that the game is dying, and I'm not part of the Yu-Gi-Oh community, so I can't speak to whether this is the general consensus or not. What game out of the new big 3, Flesh and Blood, Lorcana, One Piece, do you think has the ability to overtake Yu-Gi-Oh? That's a great question. I can say, okay, I know we're going to get rusted in the comments in here because we're not like veterans in the TCG space, but I will say out of these 3, I would say Flesh and Blood is least likely. I feel like Flesh and Blood is probably peaked, but Lorcana and One Piece, I feel like those are still like their stars still shooting up. It's hard to say where they're going to land. I could see them both overtaking Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, and Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't know. I mean, I also don't follow Yu-Gi-Oh, but I do know some Yu-Gi-Oh players locally, and I'll ask them when I see them next week what they think, what the status of the game is. I don't know if the game is dying. I know that there's a lot of talk now that with the Lorcana challenges and what cards are in there, about a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players are very upset with how Yu-Gi-Oh is just constantly degrading what they can get at the big events. Where now, like, you can walk away with barely enough pricing to like pay for the entry ticket even.
Wow.
And so I think that's what the main conversation. Maybe the sales are down. Maybe, something about the game is where a lot of people think that it is dying. But I mean, if it's been around forever and there's enough of a big community and there's people continuing to play, I mean, there's going to be ebbs and flows of ups and downs of sales.
Yep. All it takes is one good set and people will be right back in.
Right. Exactly. But as far as which one can overtake, I think you're right. I think currently One Piece is the front runner because they've been out a little longer than Lorcana. They have, there's a pretty big fan base for them, and I don't know, the events that I've seen at local shops, they get a lot of people, and I think that Lorcana is like a year behind that, and we'll see, as they go forward and their ages become relatively closer because they've both been lasting for years. I think that's going to be a fight between the two to see how well they do, and if Bandai and Ravensburger manage the games correctly.
Well, and I'll just say this from my point of view. Again, this is me looking from the outside in, at least on Flesh and Blood and One Piece. Flesh and Blood seems to be geared towards the really competitive players, whereas Lorcana attracts, they're trying to go for the casual crowd. So the potential player base for Lorcana is definitely a lot bigger, but Lorcana is also attracting a lot of competitive players, especially when they see just how valuable the prize support is in these national events. And I imagine Worlds will be pretty good. And the one thing that I think is holding One Piece back is the one thing we complained about Lorcana in the beginning is product allocation. Like even now, how many sets I think they're on set 7 or 8 and they're still having supply issues. And some people say, and again, this is me talking from the outside, not being a part of the community, but I see people on Twitter say that like Bandai is purposefully not printing these to demand, which, that's what they said about Lorcana in the beginning too, but Bandai's had enough time. They see how popular One Piece is, and so they could print more. But again, like, take what I say with a grain of salt. So I think if Bandai doesn't increase the output of One Piece, because One Piece is a game that I'd be interested in playing, but I don't want to pay One Piece prices for the cards. So if they were to increase production and make it a little more affordable, like I think Star would shoot even higher. But again, at the end of the day, I'm just an armchair, card game player over here.
Right.
All right. Any other comments? Anything else we want to close on before we close out here?
Oh, I just want to tell you real quick. I finally did my very first ever draft this week.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. How'd it go?
Right? I've only ever done sealed events. So I did my very first draft event. It was fun. It definitely is a different feel, and it was a little frustrating when those cards get handed to you and you're like, I don't want any of these.
Can I tell you my last draft? So there was 8 of us, okay?
Right.
And I was sitting at one spot on the table, and when he started the event, then he assigned everybody seating, and I moved over one spot, okay? The person where I was sitting at got an enchanted Ariel card. I was just like, if I only been able to stay there. Anyway,
but
carry on.
No one got an enchanted that I saw at our event. But I did fill in like a couple of cards I needed. I actually let a card I needed, a legendary, go. I'm like, oh, it's like a $3 legendary. I can let it go, and I don't need it in this. It's not a good limited card. But we played 3 games, just 3 games straight with, there was no like championship prizing or anything. It was just like getting cards and being able to do the event was the prize. But, the top 3 got a pin. And believe it or not, I went 3-0, and they were some hard fought games, but I am very happy with that. I put them in there. I was able to sing, the draw 5 card.
My gosh, that card is brutal.
I was able to sing that in all 3 games.
Wow.
Yeah, it was because I threw in 2 of the Singer Ursulas, the 2-drop Ursulas, just for the purpose of getting to that card.
Wow.
It was awesome. Wow. It was a lot of fun. I was just saying, drafting is fun, but yeah, if you don't like frustration when you're doing your building and how you get the cards, then draft is not for you. That was it.
All right.
I just wanted to mention that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, if you liked what you heard, you can follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to us on the podcasting platform of your choice. Again, I know this is a shorter episode, but we wanted to pop something out today. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Citizens of Lorcana. And James, where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere at Dan Regal, and you can also check out the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog. Our podcast, SD Concast, is running every week up until Comic-Con, which is in 4 weeks. That's crazy talk. And I think that's it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.